Disclaimer: all the multiple orders and branches of Hinduism, and especially Vaishnavism, is the main ISKCON mission, have always respected human rights, which are provided to minorities by secular governments. Krishna followers have never participated in marches and protests against LGBTQ+ minorities, as other groups do. However, these activists have been constantly intruding on the temples and communities as social networks of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, even with open transvestite shows like carnival troops in religion processions, and they pass it on video without the slightest rescue. Now, even Lord Krishna is falsely slandered as being gay. Therefore, is the legitimate right to present a defense, as will be done in this paper. Discretion is advised. Walter's paper on Krishna, Debuking, one among several hoax of homoerotization of great personalities in the history. Horacio Francisco Arganis, PhD. But there is another version of pseudoscience, the only one that gives the appearance of science, because it had apparently followed some method steps, but that is really a marketing or advertising strategy. It promotes ideological products or services through certain indications that, although they do not withstand a serious methodological analysis, are capable of dazzling those who, perhaps, see this superficially, especially if its papers are published in prestigious magazines. Its purpose is not to contribute to increasing humanity's cognitive heritage, but rather to sell products, and with some frequency are succeed. Alberto Lifshitz. In 2019, on a young people blog, usually with a degree in social science, a sad article appeared that had been long overdue, as we had long expected by the great worldwide campaign of constant indoctrination, which is not only the great worldwide seeking the very respectable and well-deserved human rights of minorities, in this case LGBTQ+. Rather, their propaganda has reached intense levels ranging from snack chips to children's movies, TV, and comics, which, far from earning Marita's respect, has created the opposite side, a counter-reaction on the part of the masses and also the academic dissenting voices. Now, the same rosary, the same repeated mantra of homoerotization of the great personalities of history has been applied to none other than the most famous hero and teacher recognized by all the great sages and saints of the Hindu people as the supreme avatar, the highest incarnation of God, Vishnu, that is Bhagavan Swayam, the supreme personality of God, who refer to the prince of the famous Yadu dynasty, whose full name is Sri Krishna Vasudeva, who today his Yadu clan has descendants. Tamir Sheikh, 2003, Russell, 1916, James Todd and William Crook, 1998, etc. being the central figure not only in religion and culture, but also in the philosophical thought of India of thousands of years. We will talk about a paper that has a sensational title, as we will see later. Although this type of maneuver reaches the border between black humor and the irreverent, we nevertheless invite all the readers to follow a serious argumentation of this case, regardless of the fact that it crosses all lines of ethics, sounding scathing and obscene, which is difficult not to arouse mixed emotions and feelings. It's ironically called fluid masculinity, sometimes very fake and another barren. The case of Krishna by the anthropologist Holly Walters. First of all, you have to understand that there is a whole context behind this matter. Although the activists and enthusiastic followers of these groups ignore it and even take refuge in a passionate denialism. The historical truth discovered by scholars is that all this had its roots in the past, with the preaching of the Soviet Marxist movement, which, as the red activists themselves confessed, beginning with the father of cultural Marxism, Gramsci, who openly declared that the only way in which humanity can be dominated by with Marxist ideology is not, as Marx said, with an armed revolution, but rather by infiltrating and dominating powers of cultural expression that are great social forces to drag and guide the masses, such as education, the media, sports, cinema, entertainment, newspapers, TV, etc. And he emphasized religion, that is, international religious societies, to gradually destroy their moral basis, such as marriage, family, and thus drag the masses to their cause. Therefore, the red organic intellectuals discovered that religion was one of the strongest obstacles and of great persuasive power of the masses, which resist on the onslaught of communism, especially because of its Marxism atheism. Therefore, the best way to end it and to use this for their cause was to infiltrate religion groups and attack them from within. This has been directly confessed by Red militants such as Manning Johnson in his testimony before the Committee of Un-American Activities in July of 1953. Also, Momchil motive in Between Faith and Compromise, the Bulgarian Orthodox Church and the Communist State. Also, investigation of the scholar and FBG agent W. Cleon Skousen in The Naked Communist, etc. Then, theological postmodernism has appeared today, based on the ideas of all the thinkers of cultural Marxism from Frankfurt School, where Herbert Marcuse, Wilhelm Reich, and more recently their offspring, such as Michael Foucault, Judith Butler, etc., stand out, where doctrines such as the inclusive or queer theology, feminist theology, and others predominate, reinterpreting the scriptures from these perspectives in the name of women's rights, the rights of sexual diversity or pansexualism, ending the natural family because it is the basis of capitalism, to support the sexual revolution, the support of abortion, and for this they make varnished books of scholarship and movies like Christ Promiscuous LGBTQ+. They affirm that the characters of the biblical history were like that, and they reinterpret the passages that they reject or proscribe these behaviors to legitimize gay behavior, to the extent that there are already several societies, such as the Anglican Church, Tibetan Buddhist, etc., and even various theologians have adopted, writing books and giving conferences on queer theology to attract contemporary woke youth. Although these social fight groups had been doing moderate activism for their just rights. With the fall of the Red Empire, or the USSR, in 1992, when the famous Sao Paulo Forum emerged, which was the first synod of post-Marxism in Latin America, led by the leaders of the left, Lula da Silva, Castro, Chavez, Morales, etc., together with their organic intellectual advisors, Ernest Laclau and Chandel Mouffe, where they launched their new weapon of the revolution and Marxist emancipation, which was social subversion with the fight of the rights of feminism, abortion, LGBTQ plus groups, etc. Laclau Mouffe, 1987. Called progress in Spanish, or progress, or woke people, and by his dialectical opponent's gender ideology, Marquesilaje, 2016. Besides, a little later, in the mid of 19th, a gay activist, Mr. Amara, infiltrated in ISKCON and started a campaign using a famous essay called Traya Prakriti as an indoctrination weapon, where he tried to normalize homosexuality. And for that, obsessively month after month, he sent his essay, printed in several pages, to Hare Krishna temples, probably in all the world. Later, with the emergence of email, he did so in this medium and in Yahoo groups. He creates and he and creates a group called Galba. But this conspiracy leadership simply underestimate him. Justification. As we will show later, although Walter takes refuge in his fields, anthropology, we will see that she only ventures into another branch of human disciplines, especially what is now called queer theology, although it has also been called inclusive or gay theology. Therefore, although the author of this paper is a specialist in a field of social science, in the studies of history of India, in this treatise we will respond within the parameters of theology and Vaishnava philosophy, that is, the orthodox doctrine of Sri Krishna and the teachers of or acharyas of this system. Of course, applying disciplines such as hermeneutics, philology, and another branches covered by rigorous apologetics, since this doctrine has a strict rational basis as pointed out by two classics of philosophy. Vedanta, one of the great philosophical systems of ancient India, built on the Brahma Sutra attributed to Badarayana Vyasa, perhaps 4 after Christ. Abagano Nicolo, 1966. Vedanta. There are several schools of Vedanta, all of them versed in the so-called Brahma Sutra, or also Vedanta Sutra, due to Badarayana. Ferrater Mora, Jose, 1979 to 84. In this regard, the followers of Krishna have been very rigorous even in their apologetic discourses, as Professor G.A.B. Van Buiten pointed out, referring to Yamunacharya. This important figure wrote a philosophical treatise called Agama Pramanyam. a fierce defense of the Agamic literature, concerning the hard-fought debate of that time between the Tamil Vaishnavas and the Smarta Brahmanas. Yamuna, our source, is an unimpeachable authority. Here we have not a sectarian text speaking in pious and traditional platitudes about wicked adversaries, but a Bhagavata with a fine mind who seeks to enumerate and subsequently to invalidate very precisely the traditional arguments of the smartest against the less than respectable Bhagavats. Van Buiten, 1966. Therefore, the objective of this the objective of this writing is to subject Walter's treatise to a rigorous analysis and expose the reality of such an attempt under the magnifying glass that academic tools demand of us. So, in this writing, we will analyze 1. Sleeps, sophistries, and other deficiencies. 2. Krishna, ontological and historical status. What to do? 3. What do the sources say? 3.1. Literary factors. 3.2. Philological factors. 3.3. Etymology of the verse and context. 4. Homosexuality in sacred text. And to finish with 5. A filed swindle masterwork. And 6. What the queer social engineering machinery hides, hoping that the academic community, as well as those interested, become aware of the truth of this subject. 1. Sleeps, sophism, and other shortcomings. At the beginning of her writing, Walters presents a curriculum's note to give her work a scientific legitimacy. Author Holly Walters, a cultural anthropologist of Brandeis University, United States. Her work focuses on religion, language, and ritual practice in South Asia. Her current research addresses issues of political practice and ritual mobility in the high Himalayas of Mustang, Nepal, among Hindu and Buddhist pilgrims who venerate sacred ammonite fossils called shaligrams. Here we find an interesting point. She calls two shaligrams Shilas ammonites. An ammonite, a subclass of extinct cephalopod mollusks that existed in the seas from the Middle Devonian to the end of the Cretaceous and are found fossilized in various stone layers. Therefore, Walter's information is not entirely true, since the sacred shaligram stones, which represent Lord Vishnu, do not all contain such fossils, but only some that are called chakrashilas, because they are only round bald stones that come from the Gandaki Ganges river in Nepal. He also hints at an application of anthropological methodology of participation observation from the famous Bronislaw Kasper Malinowski. My particular entry to the complexities of gender and religion in South Asia came in 2012, while I was conducting fieldwork on Hindu deity care traditions in West Bengal, India. Because I was especially interested in the gender divisions in ritual practices. I chanced a meeting with members of Galba, the Gay and Lesbian Vaishnava Association, who were at the time organizing an online platform to protest India's criminalization of homosexuality under Penal Code 377. Why, what I encountered there was a truly unexpected, a reimagining of Krishna as the icon and patron of LGBTQ rights in India. But, as already explained, in reality, without giving any direct proof from the Sanskrit sources, as we will do here, she merely repeats and relies on the interpretation from queer gender activist organic intellectuals, such as Jack Halberstam and others. Dave Naisar's Queer Activism in India, a story in the Anthropology of Ethics, Duke University Press, Durham and London. Vanita Ruth, Gandhi Lila, Loving Well, Homosexuality and Utopian Thought in Post-Colonial India, in Queering India, Same-Sex Love and Erotism in Indian Culture and Society, Routledge, New York and London. Vanita Ruth, Queering in India, Same-Sex Love and Erotism in Indian Culture and Society, Routledge, New York and London. Vanita, Ruth and Salem Tidway, edition 2, edition 1000, Same-Sex Love in India, Readings from Literature and History, Palgrave. Therefore, his apparent application of the anthropological methods serves as a mask to venture into another field, but is not his own, which is why is it a deliberate strategy of the sophism of false authority, fallacia fallae authoritatis, and also an argumentum ad verecundiam. And these activists have done by wanting to homoeroticize other figures in history. For this, she only chooses the rainbow adjectives towards Krishna without any evidence, as if they were proven facts, from which they also succumb to the petitius de principi fallacy. Let's see. In India, one of the most important religious concepts of Hindu Vaishnava practice is represented by same-sex love. Imaginaries of Krishna, one of the most beloved deities, may be the critical of the shaping of religion, gender, and queer identity in India. The masculine and feminine images attached to Krishna and the relationships that he has with associated figures may also explain how social movements around sexuality in India. However, she avoids reporting that the authentic experts of Indology have been never discovered such gay adjectives to Krishna. And in all the 40 years that the author have been working on this subject as a researcher, nor in the three theses of the most atheist and contrary opponents within the historical tradition of India, such as Charvakas, Ajivakas, Jains, Buddhists, nor in the apologetic works in more than 3,000 years, nobody attributed such adjectives to Krishna, but on the contrary, as we will see later. In addition, she presents a reading and re-reading of homoerotization of Krishna, as if it were the core theological foundation of Vaishnava doctrine, which is not what the experts have discovered, but rather the opposite. Vaishnava orthodoxy does not condemn any of these behaviors, condone neither for the followers nor for Krishna, as we will demonstrate later. Regarding an interpretation of erotization of Radha, the eternal Shakti consort and Krishna, it only comes from certain cults derived from both India and Buddhist Tantrism, which are quite heterodox and pointed out by the expert Srivatsa Goswami. The Sahayya were a separate phenomenon that has already existed for centuries, Budlurs began to identify itself with Chaitanya Vaishnavism in order to improve their religious credentials and gain popularity. Become from Tantric Buddhists, their heresy is their self-identification as Radha and Krishna and their sacralization of sex. Srivatsa Goswami, 1983. Although it is been said, it is even sad that unless they show us a source, but neither their sexually Sahajiya tantrics nor the staunchest Krishna enemies and his doctrine in more than 3,000 years according to Muller's historical model and 5,000 years according to archaeoastronomy and the traditional history of India says, no one has presented evidence that indicates this homoerotization. So, without proof, it's just another implausible claim. 2. Krishna, ontological and historical status. Another problem that is in order to introduce Krishna to a non-specialized audience and without teaching any source evidence about Krishna's life, she states again. For Galba's purposes, what was especially salient was that Krishna appears in a variety of gender and sex combinations that can be and had been read as alternative bisexual, transgender, and intersex. One of his more well-known transformations, for example, is that of Mohini, a transient female form he once adopted in order to fulfill the obligation of a marriage and kinship contract. Given this model of divine gender fluidity and effective relationship, it follows that intimate same-sex friendships are common occurrence in Hindu mythology even now. Krishna is one of the most beloved deities of Hindu and India. He appears as the mischievous divine lover, Radha Krishna, in North India, while being a patronage of art, music, and poetry, Vithoba Krishna, in Maharashtra in central India. He is associated with Dvaita philosophy and monastic tradition, Udupi Krishna in Karnataka and Guruvayur in Kerala in the south. Regarding the purpose of Galba, our researcher attendee contacted the founder of such LGBTQ collective, Amara Wilhelm, and he revealed very important things to us about Walters and her alleged relationship with them, a point that we will report in the final parts. In addition to all the gay imaginary that interpolates on Krishna, like all Krishna's haters, Jacobins, Walters avoids reporting that the most respected researchers in the field of Indological studies, after more than 3 centuries of research and debate, have confirmed that Krishna is a historical figure and not just another popular deity of Hinduism, which he piles up with mythology, as if it were a dead religion when the doctrine of Krishna, popularly called Hinduism, is one of the living systems of religion, theology, and philosophy, followed by more than 1.5 billion people, not only in India, but worldwide today. And not as happened with, with other belief systems and cultures that were extinct, that no one cares that religions are called mythology. In this regard, we will cite a long list, but let's see some examples. Table 1. Horace H. Wilson, Radha Krishna who appeared to have been originally real and historical characters. Wilson, 1870. W.J. Wilkins, quoting to Goldstucker, state, is the most interesting incarnation of Vishnu, both on the account of the opportunity which it affords to trace in Hindu antiquity the gradual transformation from mortal heroes into representatives of God. Goldstucker, 1882. H. Jacobi, In the classic Encyclopedia of Religion and Ethics stated, in these early days, Vasudeva, who was considered an incarnation of God, was a different of Krishna, a Rajaput chief, and later they become identificates in the traditional belief. 99. Rudolf Otto, 1933. That Krishna himself was a historical figure is indeed quite indubitable. Dr. R.C. Mayumdar, 1954. There is now, among specialists, a general consensus of opinion in favor of the historicity of Krishna. Many also hold the view that Vasudeva, the Yadava hero, the coward boy in Gokula, were one and the same person. As for reducing and relativizing Krishna as one more deity of the Hindu pantheon, we allow ourselves to inform that experts such as the Shastras tell us the opposite. Let us see some examples. In the Vedic literature of India, Vishnu is regarded as the supreme being by whose power there is order and stability in nature, and who is worshipped in a spirit of loving devotion or bhakti. It is understood that from time to time he incarnates himself in whole or in a part in order to help humanity. Lord Krishna is the original and complete form of Vishnu. Lord Krishna was born in a prison and from the beginning showed signs of being an extraordinarily bright child. However, the most important aspect of his personality emerged when, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, a place about 100 miles from Delhi, he spoke the words of Bhagavad Gita to his friend and disciple Arjuna. That holy speech, spoken in no more than 30 minutes, still inspires and awakens the spirit of 450 million people in India. Currently, there are about 1.5 billion worldwide. For the last 5,000 years, Lord Krishna has been a powerful source of guidance in India. VIP 1975. The great scholar Jiva Goswami has written a treatise called Krishna Sandarbha, when he dedicates this work to a detailed analysis of the sacred text that reveals the ontological status of Krishna. In this regard, Jiva Goswami presents the Srimad Bhagavatam as the Parivarsa Sutra or concluding text synthesis. All the above incarnations are either plenary portions or portion of the plenary portions of the Lord. Lord Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them appear on the planets. Whenever there is a disturbance created by the atheist, the Lord incarnates to protect theists. The Sanskrit words of this text are very clear. Krishna stu Bhagavan Swayam. In this regard, Professor Thomas Hopkins gives us the verdict after investigating Krishna for years. Krishna has been revealed as the Supreme Lord, identified as the Vedic Brahman and Purusha, and with the universal form of Vishnu. He is the culmination of all the religious forms of the Vedas. Hopkins, 1971. But could it be that Walter did not know this? Unfortunately, we allow ourselves to say that she did know, since one of the few rigorous sources she cites is Dr. Edwin Bryant, Krishna, a source book of Oxford University Press, when his work clearly reports this And even more, Brian published his research in another previous book for the same respectable academic publisher, Quest of the Historical Krishna, Oxford University Press, which demonstrates a typical case of misinformation to mislead the public. What ancient sources said. In fact, we could continue to discover a series of shortcomings in her small writing, which is not even structured as an essay. But at the same time, we will go to analyze the source, from where the activists of gay gender have tried to find their whole idea. The quotation that such taggers exalt with great effusion could be reduced to a practically a passage, just as they use the fragment of Samuel 1 17:27, where David composed a dirge for Saul and Jonathan, and ordered that they show it to the people of Judah. It is known as the Song of the Bow and is recorded in the book of Yashar. David took up this lament concerning Saul and his son Jonathan, and he ordered that the people of Judah be taught this lament of the bow. It is written in the book of Yashar. A gazelle lies slain in your hates, Israel. Israel. How the mighty have fallen. Tell it not in Gath. Proclaim it not on the streets of Ashkelon. Lest the daughters of the Philistines be glad, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised rejoice. Mountains of Gilboa, may you have neither dew nor rain, may no showers fall on your terraced fields, for there the shield of the mighty was despised, the shield of Saul, no longer rubbed with oil, from the blood, from the blood of the slain, from the flesh of the mighty. The bow of Jonathan did not turn back, the sword of Saul did not return unsatisfied. Saul and Jonathan, in life they were loved and admired, and in death they were not parted. They were swifter than eagles, they were stronger than lions. Daughters of Israel, weep for Saul, who clothed you in scarlet and finery, who adorned you, who adorned your garments with ornaments of gold. How the mighty have fallen in battle! Jonathan lies, slain in your hates. I grieve for you, Jonathan, my brother. You were very dear to me. Your love for me was wonderful, more wonderful than that of woman. And about Jesus and his most beloved disciple in John. After he had in John 13:23. After he said this, Jesus was troubled in spirit and testified, very truly, I tell you, one of you is going to betray me. His disciples, his disciples stared at one another, at a loss to know which of them he meant. One of them, the disciple whom Jesus loved, was reclining next to him. Simon Peter motioned to this disciple and said, Ask him which one he means. Leaning back against Jesus, he asked him, Lord, who is it? Jesus answered, It is the one to whom I will give this piece of bread, which I have dipped in it in the dish. Then, dipping the piece of bread, he gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. As soon as Judas took the bread, Satan entered into him. And for Krishna, they use the following verse of the Mahabharata. And with this, the LGBTQ interpreters enlighten us, ignoring, leaving aside thousands of years of history and scholarly exercise, since they are only ones who have discovered the maximum revelations. My wives, my kinsmen, my relatives, none amongst these is dearer to me than Arjuna, O Daruka. I shall not be able to cast my eyes even for a single moment on the earth bereft of Arjuna. 3.1 Literary factors. To begin, the Mahabharata literary genre is an epic. Worldly Jacobins intellectuals love to brand supernatural sagas and all religious supernatural history as unreal, and enclose everything in mythology, and more when they speak of Hindu epics. But not so the neutral sides, as noted in 1993 Ocean 1 Illustrated Encyclopedic Dictionary, which defines epic. Extensive narrative poem with a strong national character, starring a hero. Set of historical facts transformed into legend and myth. Examples: the Ramayana, Mahabharata, the Aeneid in Rome, the Song of My Cid, the Song of Roland, and also states. Krishna, eighth incarnation of the god Vishnu, whose life is narrated in the Mahabharata. Indeed, serious studies show us that the Mahabharata, the epic poem that has been an inexhaustible genre in India ethics and culture, has an universal scope and meaning for all the peoples of the world. It has it for the universal principles on which all the facts are based on human values, which shine in all its episodes, full of philosophy, politics, history, and religion. It is 30 times longer than the Aeneid, and Cesar Cantu pointed out. It is the most colossal epic of all. It surpasses both the Iliad and the Odyssey, the liberated Jerusalem and the Lusiad, as well as the pyramids of Egypt of the great temples. Vyasa, the Mahabharata contains 100 The Mahabharata contains 100,000 verses, where the Ramayana, the history of Nala and Sakuntala are summarized, and in its section Bhisma Parma, it contains the Bhagavad Gita. The Mahabharata is intended to supply the purpose of the Vedas. Therefore, it contains the Veda in short, the Gita. Even so, an important point is that even traditional scholars are aware that the objective of this genre is not to rigorously copy reality, but rather to dramatize, exalt, and exaggerate the emotions, virtues, and vices of the characters, and its narrative is tainted of poetic, literary ornamentation, called alankara, to teach their system of thought, values, and captivate the public with the didactic purpose of teaching, rather than recording the simple facts of the past per se. Saying this way, an epic does not aspire to be real or faithful chronicle of what happened, but rather a history seasoned with fiction in the style of myth, which has a cultural and poetic value instead of historical and documentary. At the same time, it is important to indicate limited empirical evidence does not allow worldly scholars to definitively affirm or deny his sayings, let alone speak authoritatively of Krishna's divinity. Dr. Resnick in 2016. Philological factors. Now, as regards the genuine preservation of the original text of the Mahabharata, we told that, again, the lack of historiographical evidence precludes a definitive answer. In the 20th century, the most distinguished Sanskrit scholars attempt to reconstruct the Mahabharata from the dozens of surviving recensions or manuscripts. After half a century of assiduous, brilliant study, they admitted that it is beyond the power of mundane academia to recreate and thus conclusively identify an original version of this book. In this regard, this problem was also admitted by Madhavacharya, one of the most brilliant teachers of the tradition, because in his commentary on the Mahabharata Tatparyanidnaya, we read that verses had been added to it and they have been removed. In other words, this epic song has not remained original, but verses and stories have been added to it. In this regard, the most recent avatar of Krishna, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, explained to us in the Mahabharata. Illusory stories that deny Krishna's conscious conclusion deal with the destruction of the Yadu dynasty, the departure of Krishna, the story that Krishna and Balaram arose from two hairs of Ksirodakasayi Vishnu, one white and one black, and the story of the abductions of the queens. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained to Sanatana Goswami the correct conclusion of these stories. The Mahabharata mentions some of Lord Krishna's Mausalya Lila pastimes. Among them are the stories of the destruction of the Yadu dynasty, Krishna's departure from this world, the time he has bounded by a hunter's arrow, the story that Krishna is the incarnation of a hare, Kesavatara, as well as Mahisi Harana, the abductions of the queens of Krishna. Actually, these pastimes are not true, but are narrated to confuse the asuras who want to prove that Krishna is an ordinary human being. They are false, in the sense that they are not eternal pastimes, nor are they transcendental or spiritual. As proof of the lack of originality of said verse, it is that in the different editions, the alleged statement appears in different chapters. For example, in the body critical edition, it is Drona Parva 56, chapter 56 to 23 to 26, and in the Gita Press Mahabharata edition, Dona Parva, chapter 79, 26 to 29. That is 20 chapters apart more. All this makes a verse seasoned with drama. And another factor is that the author or copyist who attributes said verse to Krishna is make use of a poetic resource, the ornament called hyperbole in Sanskrit, Atishukti, which superlatively exaggerates the statements to give emotion to the story. Let's see the technical textual translation that differs from the one presented by the pro-gay. Etymology of the text and context of the characters. Dahidaranam mitrani yatayo nachabandava kaschinanyapiyatara kuntiputra mamaryunat anaryunamimam lokam mahurtam pidaruka udikfitum nasaktoham bhavita chatatata. For there is no wife, no friends, no kinsmen, allied, and none dearer to me than son of Kunti, Daruka. Arjuna lest this world is dark for a moment. An important point is the fact that Arjuna was the first recipient of Krishna's teachings, which were immortalized in the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of the Lord. He had just been given the most important Vedic teaching of Krishna, and only after more than 36 years later, before Krishna returned to his abode, he again recited his other cousin Uddhava, the Gita, where he repeats the same teachings that he gave to Arjuna, but extends more on other topics than his first Gita, and this called the Uddhava Gita. But nobody, neither wives of other of own nor other citizens, had those teachings called the Krishna Raya Vidya, the king of knowledge, Raya Guhya, the king of secrets, etc. That is why Arjuna is so important. And as Arjuna had promised to immolate himself, in that day he did not kill Prince Jayadratha in battle, because first he had insulted his wife, Queen Draupadi, because his brother, Emperor Yudhishthira, had bet her in a game of rigged dice, and they tried to undress her in public, and Jayadratha perpetuated other immoral traits, such as preventing to the teenage Arjuna's sons, Abhimanyu, from being rescued when he had been massacred by all the Kuru's warriors. Being unarmed and alone inside in the closed army formation. So Krishna promised to protect Arjuna, even against his vow of don't interview in the war. And since Arjuna was the recipient of his supreme teaching, therefore the world would remain in darkness, without forgetting that it is a literary figure called hyperbole, which exaggerates to give drama to the narration. Another factor to clarify this, it is important to start from reality. Relationships between living beings, and especially humans, are not reduced to just erotic passions. For example, there are very intense feelings of love between animals and their owners, including wild species raised by humans, such as lions, bears, etc. How to say pets, such as cats, dogs, and others. Even if they stop seeing each other for years, when they meet again, those beings manifest very deep feelings of love and affection. Also, between human beings, such as brothers, cousins, friends, and another relatives, and what to say when there is a war or a catastrophe, people develop strong bonds of love and affection. And what to say between God and souls? It is also important that this statement was attributed by Krishna in the midst of a war, the Battle of Kurukshetra, and Arjuna was his closest cousin. On the other hand, eros can be given and carried out between two individuals without the slightest affection or love, as is the case with rape or sexual service or casual sex. This exchange of loving relationships the Krishna's devotee sage had called rasa. Now, will be there any study that scientifically demonstrates the rasas of devotees of Krishna? The answer is Dr. Howard Resnick. Historically, the Vaishnava tradition has distinguished itself by its vast erudition and brilliant self-expression. Dr. Gary Tubb, then chairman of the Sanskrit and Indian Studies Department at Harvard, once expressed to me at length his deep admiration for Rupa Goswami, who had emerged as a towering intellectual figure in his time through his application of rasa theory to the pastime of Lord Krishna in such work as Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Among our forefathers are such lettered figures as Vyasadeva himself, Jiva Goswami, Ramanuja, Madhava, Baladeva, Vidyabhushana, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and of course Srila Prabhupada, who earned so much heartfelt acclaim for the international academic community. Thus, from the ancient sage in the sacred texts, as in the time of the Renaissance, we will inform that there are five direct relationships with Krishna and his devotees, which also exist between human beings. As soon as one becomes a devotee of the Lord, he also has direct relationship with him. This is a very complex subject, but in a nutshell, a devotee can be said to have a relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead of one of these five different ways. 1. Santa Rasa. One can be devoted in a passive state. 2. Dasya Rasa. One can be a devotee in an active state. 3. Sakya Rasa. One can be devoted as a friend. 4. Vatsalya rasa. One can be devoted like father or mother. 5. Madhurya rasa. One can be devoted as a conjugal love. Arjuna had a friendly relationship with the Lord. Of course, there is a gulf between this friendship and that which we find in the material world. The first is a transcendental friendship that not everyone can have. Of course, everyone has a specific relationship with the Lord, and that relationship is evoked by perfecting devotional service. And Krishna revealed clearly his relationship with Arjuna several times in the Gita. For example, Saivam Mayate Dura, Yoga Prokta Puratana, Bhaktusi me Sakacheti, Rahasyam Hietaduttamam. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you because you are my devotee as well as my friend and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. It is also good to distinguish that Sanskrit has very well defined words for the types of relationships. For example, for sexual love, it is used pumsastriyami tu nibavam, tuam kamayami. That means I love you. Kama babam, laingika. Laingika means which initiates the sexual drive or something which has relationship with sex. Madanasaya. Here, Madanasaya, Madana plus Ashaya, sexual act plus wanting. This means wanting to sexual drive. She is expecting wanting to have sexual union with her partner. Kama. Kama means having excitement about sexual intercourse. This can happen only with the divine blessings of Sri Kamadeva, Manmata, Rati. Sri Rati Devi is the consort of Sri Kamadeva, Manmata. She is the one who initiates the sexual appeal. Rati means sexual pleasure, provider of sexual desire. Mada, this word is used when one's desires to have sex have increased enormously, exponentially. Boga, to have material enjoyment, that is, especially the sexual enjoyment. And for homosexual relationships, maituna pumsam, maituna pumsi, purusha ada udakyayam, ayoni sureta, etc. are used. And what is the word used in this verse? Is priya, priyatara, which refers to affection in general. That is to say, dear in general terms of affection, and not just erotic or romantic. So, Priyatara has nothing to do with homosexuality like Maituna Pumsam, etc. In fact, this adjective never appears in any passage that indicates Krishna's relationship with any of his devoted men. Therefore, it is a fraud, an entelechy. Now, it is inconceivable where the queers get such attributions. It is important to emphasize that both the Mahabharata and more hagiographical works, the Bhagavatam, Harivamsa, and Vishnu Purana, as well as the works of the Jainas, keep text for being sources on the life of Krishna and Arjuna. Tell us without any ambiguity how Krishna was so accentuated in his love for his princesses, who were his wives, and he had many wives, and also 10 children with each of them. In fact, one of the criticisms of Krishna's haters have been the opposite, as feminist Srishti Jaswal pointed out in Hindi Times. Because that Krishna did, he was a womanizer, a fuckboy. But this is old, and was stressed at the time of the British colony by Christian missionaries and English teachers, calling Krishna a womanizer, as the scholar Bhaktivinoda Thakur pointed out. Young Bengalis chained up in English thought and ideas, and wholly ignorant of the pre-Mohammedan history of his own country. will add one more explanation by saying that the Bhagavad is a book containing an account of the life of Krishna, who was an ambitious and an immoral man. This shallow critic's mind will undoubtedly be changed if if he but reflects upon only one great and fundamental point, i.e., how it could be possible that a spiritualist of rank and school of Vyasa, teaching the best principles of tales, wrote out the whole of Bhagavad, and composing the four texts quoted in the beginning as the foundation of his mighty work, could have created upon the belief of men the idea that the sensual connection between men with certain females is the highest object of worship. This is surely impossible. Dear critic, Vyasa could not have thought a common Vyagi to set up an akara, a place of worship, with a number of females it found anywhere. Vyasa, who, who could teach us repeatedly in the whole of the Bhagavad that sensual pleasures are momentary like a pleasure of rubbing the itching hand on that man's highest duty is to have spiritual love with God, could never have prescribed the worship of or even any indulgence in sensual pleasures. Bhaktivinoda Thakur. However, this was one of the most common attacks by the puritanical moralists to question the divinity of Krishna for the romantic pastimes with the gopis, even considering them as erotic, by censoring him for having hung away the clothes of these girls and watched them bathe, without considering that he was a little boy of 7 years. Also, when he danced the rasa with them, the interesting thing about this is the hypercriticism was well refuted in the same Bhagavatam by the sage Sukadeva, who replied that there was no sexual intercourse, using the word avarudha sureta. Prabhupada replied, he could not be lustful. First of all, according to material calculation, he was only 8 years old. At that age, a child cannot be lustful, especially at the time when he was so moral in India. Another important point is that none of the gopis who danced with Krishna were in their material bodies. They danced with Krishna in their spiritual bodies. All their husbands thought that their wives were sleeping by their sides. The so-called husbands of the gopis were already in love with the influence of the enamored with the influence of the external energy of Krishna. So, by dint of this very energy, they could not understand that their wives had gone to dance with Krishna. What then is the basis of accusing Krishna of dancing with others' wives? The bodies of the gopis, which were their husbands, were lying in bed, but the spiritual parts and parcels of Krishna were dancing with him. Krishna is the Supreme Person, the Holy Spirit, and he danced with his spiritual bodies of the gopis. There is, therefore, no reason to accuse Krishna in any way. Contrary to the morbid idea the rasa dance means from the Vedic literature, it is understood that when a dramatic actor dances among many young men, women, the dance of the group is called the rasa dance. For an understanding of this theme, that scholars of mystical experience call the mystical marriage of God, readers are invited to deeply study the work of Dance of Divine Love, India's classic sacred love history, the Rasa Leela of Krishna, by the Professor Graham M. Swift, PhD. Some have pointed out that in the writings of Vaishnava poets, sensual acts between the gopis and Krishna are narrated, but those writings are not the historical facts that he executed, but rather they are poetry and dramas, which appear from the 8th to the 14th century, which are considered revelations of the mystical meditation of such poets. This also refutes the absurd idea of labeling Krishna as the god of love. For further understanding, see Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Opus C. C.30T, Opus Sit. But about Arjuna, it is interesting that he also had four wives, to whom he showed great love and did feats such as facing the army of the Yadus to take, by mutual agreement, Princess Subhadra, the half-sister of Krishna, Adiparva 40 to 43, and an association used by the queer preachers is, and recount that when Arjuna and his brothers had to be exiled and had to live in incognito for 2 years due to the Kuru's intrigues, that is why they disguised themselves. King Yudhishthir as a counselor, Bhima as a cooker, the twins Nakula and Sahadeva as caretakers of horses and cows. Their great hero Arjuna disguised himself as an eunuch master of dance. According to the saga, this comes from another supernatural relate, because he had gone on a space trip to the planet of his father, the Deva Indra, for a sidereal battle against the demons who possessed a large special ship, which terrified the celestial planets of the Devas. Then Arjuna defeated them with his mystical weapons, and then, just as in the Islamic religion, it is said that in the celestial worlds there are beautiful women called Huries, and the Nordics call them the Valkyries. Thus, in the celestial planet of Indra, there are the Aksaras, beautiful celestial nymphs, women experts in sensuality, and Urvasi, the main concubine of his father, the Deva Indra. She went to offer herself in his room, and since Arjuna knew that she was his father's favorite, he told her that he couldn't have an intimate relationship with her for not disrespect his father Indra, and she curses him to look like an eunuch for a while, and hence he wears that disguise. And at that time, Krishna has not contact with the Pandavas, and also at the time the king offered his daughter, the Princess Uttara, as his wife, would Arjuna accept to care for his sons, Prince Abhimanyu, for Arjuna had been her teacher. So, such accusations are very funny, because the hagiography is very precise in recounting Arjuna's great love for for his princesses, with whom he married, where there are open descriptions of his intense love for each of them, and he had several children. In fact, we could fill this essay with such accounts, but readers can read the paragraphs or chapters for the for Draupadi in Adiparva, Arjuna marries Subhadra, Arjuna marries Prince Ulupi of the Nagas, and Chitraganda in the Adiparva, Tirtha Yatra. Therefore, such homoerotizing attributes are totally misinformations and chimeras. And such speculations are even laughable, because even in the relates where Krishna and his devotee Arjuna spent brief time together, we find that they always spoke of their brave exploits in winning their princesses, and of their beautiful romances with the maidens. One of the examples in said text that could be quoted is when Arjuna and Krishna accompanied in the banks of Yamuna for a hunting party. Since the military class, the Kshatriyas, were allowed to hunt especially dangerous animals for the holy hermits and defenseless populations, and thus prepare for war. Quoting Mahabharata Adiparva, Krishna had a special affection for that river, because it was the landscape that saw him grow up during the days of his childhood. He remembered the house of Nanda, the king of herds. He thought of his mother Yashoda, that he was in Gokula, and how much she loved him. He remembered Radha and the place where they used to meet. It was a heaven covered with vines and jasmines. Krishna sighed, and then related to Arjuna the many incidents that befell him in those days. In Bhagavatam 10.58, we are given more details of this trip. Arjuna felt tired and thirsty from hunting, and therefore he went to the bank of the Yamuna along with Krishna. When both the Krishnas, namely Krishna and Arjuna, reached the bank of the Yamuna, Arjuna sometimes calls Krishna as is Draupadi, they washed their hands, feet, and mouths, and drank the clear water of Yamuna. While resting and drinking water, They saw a beautiful girl and of marriageable age walking alone in the bank of Yamuna. Krishna asked his friend Arjuna to go forward and ask this girl who she was. By the order of Krishna, Arjuna immediately approached the girl, who was very beautiful. She had an attractive body, nice, glittering teeth, and a smiling face. Arjuna inquired, "My dear girl, why are you are so beautiful with your raised breast? May I, may I ask you who you are? We are surprised to see you loitering here alone. What is your purpose in coming here? We can guess only that you are searching for a suitable husband. If you don't mind, you can disclose your purpose. I shall try to satisfy you." The beautiful girl was the river Yamuna personified. She replied, "Sir, I am the daughter of the Son of God, of the Sun God, and I am now performing penance and austerity to have Lord Vishnu as my husband. I think he is the supreme person and is suitable to become my husband. I disclose my desire thus because you wanted to know." The girl continued, "My dear sir, I know you are the hero Arjuna, so I may further say that I shall not accept anyone as my husband besides Lord Vishnu, because he is the only protector of all living entities and the bestower of liberation for all conditioned souls. I shall be thankful unto you to pray to Lord Vishnu to be pleased with me." The girl Yamuna knew it well that Arjuna was a great devotee of Lord Krishna, and if he would pray, Krishna would never deny his request. To approach Krishna directly may sometimes be futile. To approach Krishna through his devotee is sure to be successful. He further told Arjuna, "My name is Kalindi, and I live with the waters of the Yamuna. My father was kind enough to construct a special house for me within the waters of the Yamuna, and I have vowed to remain in the water as long as I cannot find Lord Krishna." Arjuna duly carried the message of the girl Kalindi to Krishna. Although Krishna, as the super soul in everyone's heart, knew everything. Without further discussion, Krishna immediately accepted Kalindi and asked her to sit down in the chariot. Then all of them approached King Yudhishthira. In Mexico, there is a popular saying to qualify beyond all doubt the virility of the gentleman, which is, "Es un macho calado, he's a tested macho." Thus Krishna and Arjuna were tested machos, that is, straight men. Readers are really invited, and it's worth it to pay a visit because of the great wealth of these treatises provide. Reading the body, the critical edition of Mahabharata, edited by the likes of Sukansar B.S. Suktankar, S.K. Mahabharata, Bandarkar Oriental Research Institute, Pune. The Mahabharata, Volume 1, Book 1, The Book of Beginnings by J.A.B. Van Buiten, Mahabharata, the greatest spiritual epic of all time. July 13, 1999. Krishna Dharma, Historicity of Mahabharata, Evidence of Literature, Art, and Archaeology, B.B. Lal, 2013, and the work Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or directly the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam by Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada and his servants, to travel through these beautiful odysseys. 4. Homosexuality in sacred text. Contextualizing. For example, in the homoerotization of Achilles and his and this was a subject debated even among the Greek classics, since there is not direct mention in the Iliad such as homo relationship. However, this behavior was normalized at the time of Hellenization. But let us see the context and the sacred teachings of Vedic Dharma on this behavior. The texts where the laws of Dharma are established for the righteous conduct of the Vedic followers are the Dharma Shastras, composed by great sages such as Manu, Yajnavalkya, Atri, Gautama, etc., and Krishna accepted them as great authorities, as he reveals several times. For example, Srimad Bhagavatam 10:80-5. Now, in this Bhagavata Purana, which is recognized as the highest and the most authoritative work for the followers of Krishna in Canto 7.11.7. Full authority is given to the Smritis, Dharma Shastras, and Puranas, where female and male homosexuality is mentioned as a great sin. Let's see what the lyric quote says. Dharma mulam hivagavan sarva vedamayo hari smritam chatat vidan rayam yena chatma pasidati. The supreme being, the personality of Godhead, is the essence of all Vedic knowledge, the root of all religious principles, and the memory, smriti of great authorities. O King Yudhishthir, this principle of religion is to be understood as evidence of the basis of this religious principle. Everything is satisfied, including one's mind, soul, and even one's body. Srila Prabhupada, post purport. The Smriti, the scriptures following the principles of Vedic knowledge, are considered the evidence of Vedic principles. There are 20 different types of scriptures for following religious principles, and among them, the scriptures of Manu and Yajnavalkya are considered to be all-pervading authorities. In the Yajnavalkya Smriti said, Shrutismiti sadachara swasya cha priyanatmana samyak sankalpaya kamo dharma midam smritam. One should learn human behavior from the Shruti, the Vedas, from the Smriti, the scripture following the Vedic principles. Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Prasamritamrita says, Smruti, Shruti Smriti Purandani Pancharatra Vidimbina. I can taki Harer Bhaktir Utpataya Iva Kalpate. The purport is that to become a devotee, one must follow the principles laid down in the Shruti and Smriti. One must follow the codes of the Puranas and the Pancharatrika Vidhi. One cannot be a pure devotee without following the Shruti and Smriti, and the Shruti and Smriti without devotional service cannot lead one to the perfection of life. But what do the scriptures say about it? Let's start with the Mahabharata, the sources used by queers. Those foolish men of misconduct who engage in all forms of sexual relations or relation with illicit women and who sodomize do other men to sex are born again without the sexual organs or as effeminate transgenders or eunuchs. Mahabharata Pune Critical Edition Incomplete Text 13.133.51 to 52. And in Mahabharata Nusana Parva Part 2, Section CXLB, Part P.313 Ganguly Edition Full Text. Sri Shiva Bhagavan said, the sins because of which the sinful returning from the hell reaches particular births, and the sins produced by particular sins hear this from me. The murderer of a woman and the destroyer of embryos are in this birth like wildlife full of diseases. However, commits illicit pansensualism relations is now a turncoat eunuch. Who eloped with Master Guru's wife is born with diseased skin. Garuda Purana. B. Not 1. In Garuda Purana B. 2 to 4, Krishna clearly defines that homosexuality is the result of having committing non-vaginal sex, even with the wife, or of adultery, bestiality, homosexuality, etc. And it is a sin just like killing a woman, killing an unborn baby in abortion, or eloping in adultery with Guru's wife. Punishment for going to hell and being born a skin patient. The Narada Smriti, another legal code written in Vedic times, prohibits marriage among others, homosexuals, mukebhaga, or mouth vagina, men who practice oral sex with other men. These four, Isyaka, Sevyaka, Bhataretas, and mukebhaga are completely rejected as invalid for marriage. Narada Smriti 1.12.15. Also, the Narada Smriti 9.223 defines as sinners condemned for a great sin the eunuchs or transgenders, the slander of the maidens, the accused of mortal sin, a Visastaka, the traitor of a friend, the informant, the seller of Soma and Paribindaka, etc. Smith 9, 223. The Dharmashastras prohibit sex as illegal intercourse that is not vagina, a yoni, even with the wife, and the Yajnavalkya Smriti affirms that it includes acts such as sodomy with other men, and defines the four already mentioned with that conduct. Yajnavalkya Smriti 1.81. For having sex with female animals, with the woman in her menstruation, sodomy, etc., must purify himself with Santapanam penance. At Smriti 1, 268. Krishna said that the result of intercourse in the menstrual period, even with the wife, is so sinful that takes the perpetrators to the Narakas or hells. Ekadasi Magasir Sukla or Moksha Ekadasi from the Brahmanda Purana. A man who has another type of sex other than in the female reproductive organ of the wife incurs a sin. Bodhayana Dharmashastra 3.7.2. A man who has another type of sex other than in the female reproductive organ of the wife incurs a great sin, just like a thief or killing a brahmana. Astampa Dharma Sutra 1.19.5. In Srimad Bhagavatam 5.26 to 20.21, Yastu vai sarva vigamas tamma mutra niraye vartamanam abhajrakantaka salmalimna aropyanis niskarsanti. Translation. A person who indulges in sex indiscriminately, even with animals, it takes after death to the hell known as Vajrakanta Salmali. In this hell, there is a silk cotton tree full of horns as strong as thunderbolts. The agents of Yamaraj hang the sinful man on that tree and pull him down forcibly so that the thorns very severely tear his body. The great sinner who discharges the semen in those who have no womb or vagina, a yoni, sodomy, etc., in the wombs of woman other than the life, prohibited by like the yonis, and in the wombs of animals, pasu yonis, will be found in the hell recto boyana, where one must subsist eating semen. Then he falls into Vasakupa, a deep and narrow well of grease. There he remained 7 years of the Devas, and they gave him semen for his diet. Where he is reborn on earth, he becomes the most despicable man in the world. Nada Purana 1.15.93b 1995. It is stated that hitting a brahmana, smelling unpleasant items like liquor, cheating, and having sex with a man causes the loss of a good birth or varna and makes him untouchable. Manusmriti 11.68. A man who has committed zoophilia, sex with animals, or sex with the vagina with a woman, or who has heads in the water, or with a menstruating woman, must perform Santapaka Krikara. Manusmriti 11.174. A twice-born man who has sexual intercourse with a sodomy man or with a woman in an ox-drawn cart, in water, or during the day, will bathe dressed in his clothes. Manusmriti 11.175. If a maiden sexually contaminates another maiden, her fine will be 200. She too will pay double her nuptial fee and receive 10 lashes. If a woman is found having sexual intercourse with another girl, she will immediately have her head shaved on or her fingers cut off, and she will display it to him on a donkey. Manusmriti chapter 8, verse 370. The verdict of Manusmrita is chapter 11.174 prescribes eating the 5 products of the cow or panchagavya and giving up food for one night for various sexual acts committed by a man, and which are on a par with incest and adultery with the guru's wife, drinking liquor, bathing a brahmana, sex in springs or of water, or during menstruation or daytime. or sodomy, including those with other men. Established that those men who have sexual interrelation with a man must bathe while they are dressed. According to Manusmriti, traditionally it is considered that a man who engages in such acts loses all his merits of his baby birth. He becomes unsinful, untouchable. This proves that homosexuality is indeed a great sin and that the contrary argument is medical. Furthermore, the world's foremost figure in Krishna philosophy, Master Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, also emphasized this. When Srila Prabhupada was carrying out his mission, he clearly stated, without any ambiguity, in almost more than 30 statements in his books, conversations, and letters, that is a great adharma, even support, and what to say to promote homosexual life and behavior, and what to say a monogamy of this lifestyle. Let us look at one of these examples, at his book, Perfect Answers, Perfect Questions and Perfect Answers, a talk with Bob Cohen. Prabhupada. No, the idea is that marriage is not sacred. They think marriage is legalized prostitution. They think so, but marriage is not that. Even that Christian newspaper, The Watchtower, he has criticized a priest has allowed homosexual marriage between men to men. So these things are happening. They are taking it poorly for prostitution. That's all. Three. Today the priests are afraid to speak. Bhagavandas. Today the priests are afraid to speak too strongly, for else they will be fired and get no salary. And the politicians, they are also afraid to say what they really believe. They are afraid that they will be voted out or get no more money to support themselves. Srila Prabhupada. The priests are after money. They are not first class. They are low class men. This is the reason that Christianity has fallen down. The priest cannot speak straightforwardly. There is a straightforward commandment, thou shalt not kill. But because people are already killing, the priests are afraid to present the commandment straightforwardly. Now, they have even granting man-to-man marriage. What to speak of another things? The priests are sermonizing on this idea of man-to-man marriage. Just see how degraded they have become. Previously, there was any conception like this. At least outside America, nobody thought that a man could be married to another man. What is this? And the priests are supporting it. Do you know what? So what is their standard? When the world's great civilization become demonic, and the common man attaches great importance to the rectum and the genital organ, around which he centers all his activity. Even in a sacred place as Vrindavan in India, unintelligent men pretend to pass off the functions of the rectum and genitals and as spiritual activities. So such persons are called sahayiyas. According to this philosophy, through unrestricted sexual practice, we can rise to the spiritual plane. In other words, a man's homosexual appetite for another man is demonic. It is not for any sane man of his mental faculties in the normal course of life. All this called in the Srimad Bhagavatam. On his conversation, there are almost 27 statements like this. Just watch, the rascal priests are so sinful. Yes, they are supporting homosexuality. So, when the priests are sinful, the public is sinful. How will this church get going? In Morning Volume 6, 1976, Los Angeles. Our difficulty, the so-called swamis, priests, popes, who are also in the Pavriti Marga, all of them, priests, and who have illicit sexual relation. So they are propagating. Yes, you can have homosexuality when another man, marriage ceremony when a man is being performed in the open church. What kind of men they are? And they are priests. You just have to see such degraded people. Morning Walk, May 13, 1975, from Perth. And with the GBC in May 25 in 1972, Los Angeles, Srila Prabhupada says. Now, the priestly order supports homosexuality. I was surprised. They are going to approve a resolution to marry men to men. Human society has descended to such a degraded position. It's amazing when I hear that there is a big conference to pass this resolution. Still in India, if someone hears about the homosexuality, makes the sounds of exhale, the homosexual is there, but no one will support him publicly. Publicly. People are degrading themselves. Just imagine. The Prabhupada, homosexuality, they are supporting homosexuality, so degraded. And they still say, what have we done? They do not know what degradation is, and its cure. It is about teaching others. They do not know what is the meaning of degradation. In his letters to Lalita Nanda, my dear Lalita Nanda Das, accept my blessings. I have received your letter of May 13 and have taken note of its contents. I'm so sorry that you have taken homosexuality. Will not help you advance in your attempt of spiritual life. In fact, it will only hinder your progress. You don't know why you have to come to such abominable activities. What can I say? Anyway, try to render whatever service you can to Krishna, although you are in a very degraded condition. Krishna, being satisfied with your attitude of service, can bring you out of your fallen state. You should stop this homosexuality immediately. It is illicit sex, otherwise, your chances to advance in life are no one. Prove to Krishna that you are serious if you are. 5. A failed master scam tentative. Earlier in this essay, we quoted Walter openly accusing for Galva's purposes. What was especially salient was that Krishna appears in a variety of gender and sex combinations that can be and have been read as alternative bisexual, transgender, and intersex. However, our research assistant directly contacted Amara, the founder of that group, who is a militant activist of gay theology applied to the doctrine of Sri Krishna, and revealed to us about the work of Walter, whom Amara is unaware of, since she was never in contact with him, nor with her most emphasized source, Halberstam. October 4 from 2022, Gay and Lesbian Vaishnava Association. My name is Amara Das Wilhelm, and I am the founder of Galba. I founded it in 2001, and I am still running it. I do not know anyone named Jack Halberstam that I can remember. However, please understand that academic articles like this are generally very speculative and not according to scripture. So it is nice that people are discussing these matters. But we, Galba, do not necessarily agree with their conclusions. We at Galba cannot help it if people take our articles of support and information to use them for their own purposes. There are always people like this who say Krishna is gay, Chaitanya is gay, Jesus is gay, Muhammad is gay, etc. I am not too concerned with them personally. This is a type of Sahajiya influence. The reason? Amara revealed them to us before. Complete speculation and offensive. Krishna in his original form is 100 male, not third gender or homosexual. Why bother yourself in such ridiculous writings? Krishna's heart and soul is Sri Radhika and his beloved gopis, Amara. In addition, we were able to approach two scholars who it turns out them had studied Kalba. They gave us their verdict on Walters. Mark DeFilo. I think this is the first time I've been seeing this mentioned in academia. For that matter, I don't recall having heard this from those devotees. I know who LGBTQ are. Even Amara Prabhu, who founded Galba and was one of the writers for our American Hindu Today, it seems to me that the above author might do not know enough about Rasa Tattva. The Bhakti Vaishnava teachings certainly promote the intense love of Arjuna and Krishna, but is in a Sakya Bhava, friendship of the soul with God, not Madhurya Bhava, or romantic love. Michael Rosette. So far, I have been seen, I have never discovered any devotees who saw Lord Krishna in an homosexual way. If that is one of your concerns, what is more, I have never seen any indication of interest in such an idea in Galba forums, which I investigate from time. Instead, Galba tries to encourage homosexuals to worship Krishna, and yes, to marry each other. Amara Das, who is the director of Galba, told me that one late disciple of Srila Prabhupada Upendra admitted to Prabhupada that he was homosexual, and Prabhupada told him, so the best way to deal with that for him, continue to do Bhakti Yoga. As you know, the various pseudo-religions of India that are sometimes called Hindus are so varied that you can find almost anything in there somewhere. As for the article and your question about academics, I would say they are supposed to be neutral in their research, but they are human sometimes. Their opinions influence their research. If some Hindu priests today are talking about Arjuna and Krishna as having a same-sex romance, like Walter said, that is new to me. I have not heard of that, and I see nothing in Shastra to support it. Anyway, I think the article is exaggerated or ill-researched. I would need to see more evidence concerning the homoerotization of Krishna Bhakti. And finally, what the queer social engineering machine, machinery hides. Fernando León Gómez, a distinguished activist of the true human rights of homosexual minorities, affirms that not all of them are from the LGBTQ plus collective, because this group is not interested in the welfare of homosexual people, but is a political group that puts his interest about individuals who manipulate with their speech of victims of intolerance and lack of inclusion and respect. But they are totally intolerant. They are extremely exclusive with people who abandon this lifestyle to receive therapeutic help, which they nickname conversion therapy. And in the countries where they impose their political power, set LGBTQ plus to an inquisition like KGB that goes after those people who choose to live that lifestyle and mental health specialists or whoever helps overcome this preference. In this regard, we have already seen Prabhupada indicated to his disciple, you should stop this homosexuality immediately. It is illicit sex. Otherwise, your chances of advancing in spiritual life are null. Show Krishna that you are serious if you are. So, Prabhupada's solution is to overcome such behavior through the Vahayagya or Vedic sacred marriage with the opposite sex and form a Krishna conscious family to Rajaram in 1979. 75. This solution was applied in ISKCON, and there are very successful cases of improvement. And it was the only thing that was preached in general by the leading disciples of Prabhupada until the beginning of the 21st century. In fact, there are several scientific words that support that such behavior is not innate in people and it's surmountable, which are censored, cancelled, which with much hate and intolerance by queer militants. Lawrence S. Meyer and Paul R. McHugh, Sexuality and Gender Findings from the Biological, Physiological and Social Science, the New Atlantis, a Journal for Technology and Society, number 50, fall 2016. Andrea Ganalis, Harvard University, Homosexuality is Not Genetic Science, volume 365, issue 6456, 30 August 2019. Psychologist M.T. Herrero, Neurobiological Theories on Homosexuality, Department of Morphological Science and Physiology, Faculty of Medicine, University of Murcia. Teorías neurobiológicas sobre la homosexualidad, Departamento de Ciencias Morfológicas y Psicobiológica, Facultad de Medicina, Universidad de Murcia. Trapped in the Wrong Body, Gender Ideology versus Science and Philosophy, Atrapado en el Cuerpo Equivocado, la ideología de género frente a la ciencia y la filosofía, Pablo Muñoz y Urrieta, PhD. Sold by Amazon, Service Inc., December 14, 2018. Case Stories of Reparative Therapy by Joseph Nicolonzi, PhD, December 1, 2020. Joseph Nicolonzi, PhD, passed away in 2017 at the age of 70. After a long career working with thousands of men who came to him with unwanted homosexuality, Dr. Nicolozzi was the originator of reparative therapy, a U.S. Patent Office trademarked term. Reparative therapy. It is not to be confused with the generic concept of conversion therapy. Dr. Nicolosi was the founder and such clinical director of the Thomas Aquinas Philological Clinic, the largest such practice in the country. He was also co-founder of the National Association of Research and Therapy of Homosexuality, NARTH. Dr. Nicolosi received his training at the New York New School of Social Research of the California School of Professional Psychology. He is the author of Reparative Therapy of Male Homosexuality, Shame and Attachment Loss, and A Parent's Guide to Preventing Homosexuality, as well as many professional journal articles. Frequented lecturer, he also made numerous television appearances. For see more, www.josephnicolosi.com. Healing Heterosexuality, Time, Touch, and Talk by Richard Cohen Therapist. And for the social experiment of gay monogamy, it is important that monogamy means, according to the Oxford Dictionary, marriage with only one partner. Now, another silences and hidden reality is that some testimonies of the children of queer people have endorsed, as well as people who have reformed from that behavior, and neutral and independent scientific studies, among which Dr. Mark Regnerus verified that homosexuals cannot live monogamously and faithful to a couple and with everything and that life of sexual freedom, they continue committing suicide and contracting AIDS and STD, taking drugs and contracting other diseases. Conclusion. In today's society, and more so with social networks, we already have groups of ideologies who form radical subcultures, such as flat earth groups, vampire movements, depressive, darkish fan groups who worship rock stars like God, for example, Jim Morrison's cult, also militants of the ancient alien astronauts, and now this gender ideology, which includes queer theology. Only multiple Hinduism orders and branches, and especially Vaishnavism, as it is the main mission ISKCON in the world, had always respected human rights, which are given to minorities by secular governments. Krishna's followers have never participated in march and protest against LGBT minorities, as other groups do. However, such activists have been constantly bombing and raiding temples and communities as social networks for the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. In fact, there are there have been attempts to climb the religious power circles like the GBC and openly declare their preference. In Monterrey, in Mexico's northeastern, without any shame, the small temple there have been the victim of such infiltrates, even with open trans femme dressing shows like a carnival in a religious processions, and active participation in the Pride Parade. Even they pass on web in video his shows without the slightest shame. Sometimes something similar happens in the Bhakti Center Temple in New York, where they have their real preacher, not to mention all the social networks. And now even Lord Krishna is falsely defamed by those pseudoscience scholars. Undoubtedly, everyone has rights to be respected, but that is earned and must be bilateral. Because of the followers of Krishna have respected, the Homo militants must also respect, and without creating chaos and sacrilegious misinformation, they must live and let others live peacefully. But that has not been the case. As it is work by Walters shows, and the many activists of the queer campaign, which has gone beyond what would be a legitimate fight for the human rights of mutual respect and peaceful coexistence, but is now a machine of tyrannical social engineering which censors and imposes itself by force and with dishonesty in order to confuse and dominate, hushing with intolerance and debate and freedom of speech and critical analysis, resorting to frauds such as this type of discourse, which are the examples of pure pseudoscience.
पुरुषाय परमात्मने परकर्म सिद्धिं कुरु सर्वकार्यसिद्धिं कुरु ॐ नमो भगवते महासुदर्शाय सर्वदिक्पालकराय सहस्रज्वालाय परमात्मने परब्रह्मणे परज्योतिषे हुं फट् स्वाहा ॐ श्रीं ह्रीं ऐं क्लीं कृष्णाय गोविन्दाय गोपीजनवल्लभाय वराय परमपुरुषाय परमात्मने परकर्ममन्त्रयन्त्रतन्त्रोषः सहस्राणि संहर संहर मृत्योर्मोचय मोचय आयुर्वर्धय वर्धय क्षिप्रारो